week 34. This is really hard to believe. So we are going off the cuff again because, as you can hear, I've been sick. And so I don't want to skip a week. I know that I absolutely could skip a week, but I don't want to. I want to keep going because this is Advent and I love Advent. So today our focus is both Rahab, another woman listed in Jesus's genealogy, and then the vignette of Mary going to meet Elizabeth. And so what I love about these women, if you look at these stories through our lens, right? So our very specific lens of how God views women and calls women versus what tends to be happening in the larger church context, both historically and currently, and I fear a little bit going forward. So Rahab is often within preaching contexts and just conversational contexts very diminished to her occupation, right? But if you look at her story, what you should see is a woman who understands her call, a woman who is courageous and willing to stand up against what is wrong, even to voices of power, in order to do what is right and to protect her family. So the king of Jericho has given Rahab very clear direction to basically out the spies, right? Where are they? She doesn't do that. And not only that, but she sets up an agreement, a covenant. And as Wilcox points out, this is against, in a sense, what God has said, that when they go to conquer the land, they should destroy it and they should not make covenants with people. And yet they do with Rahab. So she arranges for the protection of her entire family, not just her. And she does so very courageously. But the gem that I think even I have missed the most, right? So she's courageous. She is defiant in the face of wrong. She will not bow to power, especially when it is not doing what it is doing. She also preaches. She, as a foreign woman, gives these spies a recap of what God has done for the people of Israel to that point, and names God as God. She, as a foreign woman, has heard the stories of who God is and voices her own belief and her own, I don't like the word allegiance because of how it's been skewed within Christian nationalism, but her own commitment and faith. So Rahab, this woman in Jesus's line, is strong. She is courageous. She is thinking not only of herself. It's not just her own protection that she's negotiating. She also is saying, this may be a faith that is not of my people and of my land, but it is a faith that I know, and it is a faith that I claim. Well, that's pretty amazing. That's how God sees and uses women, to diminish Rahab, to even to the point of saying, I think what often happens is we will say, God used Rahab despite her prostitution. I think that's just unfair to her, right? God uses her because of who she is. Her character recognized, I need to help these people. And so even though I'm defying my king, I will help these people, period. That's how God sees her. And so as the church, our job, I believe, is to tell her full story without leading with a less than desirable life. So then this story of Mary visiting Elizabeth. So Mary in the visit from the angel has been told that her cousin is also pregnant. Her cousin who is should be beyond pregnancy age. And so Mary goes to see her cousin. Is she going to verify fulfillment of the prophecy? Maybe. Is she going because things aren't great in her home territory? I would imagine that's part of it. Is she going just to get away because it's hard to live in a home where you've had to tell your parents that you are a virgin and you are pregnant? That can't be easy. And she's also needing a break from the fact that she has to somehow explain to her intended at some point that she's having a baby. And he knows full well that it is not his. So regardless, she journeys and she goes to see her cousin, Elizabeth. So last week we talked about the fact that Mary is a prophet. Not often, especially in non-Catholic circles, not often is she talked about as a prophet, but she is one. Elizabeth is also a prophet. And it starts right from the beginning of her story. So the moment that Mary arrives, there's this beautiful moment of John, that's who Elizabeth is pregnant with, that John leaps in her womb. And Elizabeth recognizes this as a sign of who it is that Mary is carrying. So what I love about this is this prophecy that then continues where Elizabeth names the baby as the Messiah. So she recognizes that from all that's happening, blessed are you, highly favored, carrying our Lord, right? Like she understands, Elizabeth understands. And so when you think about the stories of Advent, the tellings of the Christmas story that you were raised on, Zechariah and Elizabeth are often, very often left out of the story. And that's sad. Zechariah went through his own stuff. He's not part of this series, but he's got his own fascinating story. But she's often left out of it. And I think that's a disservice to her. I think what we learn about, again, how God views women from Rahab to Mary and Elizabeth is this. These are women who are receptive, right? Who hear what God has said and done and say, yeah, this is real. This is God. And they recognize it. And Elizabeth herself, as a prophetess, is very attuned to what is happening within her and recognizes that her younger cousin is also carrying a very important person. So Elizabeth, the prophetess, carrying John, the prophet. Mary, the prophetess, carrying the Messiah. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty incredible. So when we tell these stories, they're very often just kind of in this, kind of cutesy, artsy, children pageantry setting. But there's so much more. And so I think it's about recognizing, for the women that we do actually talk about, It's telling the fullness of their story. For the women whose names we but barely mention, it's about highlighting their stories. Because what we know from Jesus's line all the way to his birth is that God never shied away from calling women. God uses women throughout history to expand God's kingdom, to tell God's story, to invite people in. So in this season of waiting, in the season of expectant hope, that's our role. Our role is to recognize where we are called, to allow ourselves to live into that, to embrace that calling, because no matter who she is, no matter where she is, no matter what she has done, no matter how much or how little she knows or has, she is called. So give her the voice to speak. We'll see you next time.